Hello.
Hello. It was the least energetic hello we've done for a while.
Yeah. We had an episode to put out last week. Then there was big riots in Dublin on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt kind of weird to put out an episode about some old guy from the past. So we're doing a recap of the 2023 Dublin riots so far.
Part 1.
Yeah, part 1A. So this made international news. I don't know, if everyone's listening to this in other countries, I don't know if they heard about it.
Yeah, that was... Right, so how do we go? Do you want to go back through...
I've got a timeline of the events
Okay.
from Thursday. This is pretty grim.
1973, Ireland joins the EEC.
You've got to know your history. You've got to go all the way back, which we'll talk about. We'll say what happened on Thursday, and then we'll talk about the aftermath. And then I met a guy in a bus I want to talk about, and then there's a guy who's the ice cream man from McDonald's. We'll just talk about that.
Talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've stayed away from the public a good lot in the last week. I've had my headphones on a lot when I've gone out.
Sure. There's a weird energy about the place. I
did
a tour on Friday. I did a tour on Thursday, and I kept talking about how safe the place was, which was Thanksgiving. There was lots of Americans on the tour. I don't know, some of them were on Gardiner Street, which was a rough place to be staying that night. And I was supposed to be doing one on Friday, and a lot of them, only 6 people showed up. And those 6 people are lunatics, because they were all individually were like, yeah, I saw the news, and I was like, should we go? But, I've got a free tour booked, so I better.
Also, you're going to be brought around Dublin. It's a good chance to ask questions.
It was very few questions about the riots.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of interesting questions about Northern Ireland. I was like, well, I'm happy to not talk about what's happening in the city.
A day before the riots, I was showing my second cousin over from the States, and he wanted to meet up, so I met up with him. Lovely lad. And him and his missus were asking me questions about Ireland.
Mm.
And they were worried and nervous to ask other people because they weren't sure. They were like, even the idea of they don't know what like North and South, Protestant, Catholic, just there's so much history. They're like, we don't want to offend or upset anyone.
Yeah.
They don't want to ask a question about Offaly to someone from Dublin. They don't want to point out that they don't know the other
Where
counties.
Offaly is,
And so they were just asking me everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, I assume you got a lot of that, that people look over their shoulder. Or they're like, am I allowed to ask this question now?
Yeah.
Why are there 2 Irelands?
Yeah, there's a lot of why are there 2 Irelands? How do you feel about the British Empire?
Yeah, very basic questions.
Yeah, you're like, no one really cares anymore. It's all about... Well, we'll talk on Thursday. I was in town during all this, and I was completely oblivious. I left town, went home. It was only a few hours later, like someone mentioned it.
Oh, you were during the stabbing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for it starts off, there was a stab. It was November 23rd. It was around 1:30, and a man attacked. This is going to be pretty grim.
Yeah.
What do
you mean for the first bit?
Well, the second bit's just got the ice cream man.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Well, the first bit, right? So a guy attacked some kids and an adult, I guess, outside of... Yeah, a guy went on a knife spree outside a Gaelscoil in inner city Dublin. So he attacked some kids and then like one of the workers from the school as well. It's a Gaelscoil Colosh de Moira on Purnell Square in Dublin. So he stabbed 3 of the children, and then the creche worker or school worker who was protecting the kids. People saw what was happening and they jumped in, so they disarmed the guy and also beat the shit out of him, which will come in later in the story. But so it's a big news story on the day. There's photos of the guy who started the attack going around, and then with that, there's all this information on WhatsApp, Twitter, that he's an Algerian immigrant, and that it's like an Islamic terrorist attack, and none of this stuff is confirmed. There's no information coming out about it, but this spreads all around the city. And at that point, people start to gather to protest immigration and refugees coming into the country. So they're protesting on the site of the attack, Upper O'Connell Street, Purnell Street, and that goes on for a few hours. And around about 6 o'clock, the protests turn violent. So people start attacking the Gardaí, which is our police force. So at that stage, I think there's about 100 to 200 people there, the reports are saying. The Gardaí lose control of the situation. So we were all seeing at that stage, like, pictures and videos of they set one of the cop cars on fire around 7 o'clock. So at that point, they're kind of losing control of the crowd.
Yeah, but now at this point, they're saying timeline-wise, this is like 6 p.m.
Yeah.
They're saying, say about 200 people down at the cross of, like around the Ambassador, across the Parnell Street, top of O'Connell Street.
Yeah.
That from the photos? Maybe it's just because a lot of the videos and stuff I saw came after that.
It was
it was a lot
after
more.
that it goes a lot more.
Yeah, it was a lot more than 200.
So at that stage, it's just demonstrators, and they're coming up to talk about like anti-immigration, anti-refugee stuff. They start fighting the guards for some reason.
But that's a big thing that people have been talking about since then. That like we'll get into all the stupid takes people have had in a long time.
Yeah.
That it's all one thing of just a lot of people from the city don't like guards because they're from the country.
Yeah, they're not really from the country though.
A lot of them are,
but they have to.
Yeah, whereas they get stationed down there. I don't know where the hate. I do now. I understand where the hatred of the Irish Gardaí has come.
Yeah,
but this feels like a point. This feels like a hatred of something that people had like from the 70s. Not like 2023.
None of this is any.
Actually, Joe, we'll keep this a whole time. Like
there's videos going around WhatsApp. Garda car getting set on fire. Later on, there's like lads fighting the cops. Then the Lewis, which is our tram system, also set on fire. And one of the Dublin bus set on fire. So now the rioting turns to looting, and they're going all down Henry Street and O'Connell Street, breaking into Arnott's and Foot Locker and a few other places. So this stage, there's about 300 to 500 people rioting and looting. And there's videos going around calling for violence against immigrants. And there's pictures of the army being deployed in the street, stories that the children in the attack had died. And
were those pictures of the army tanks?
Yeah.
But was that real?
No,
of course.
So we'll talk about that in a second. But this is pretty much by 10 o'clock, the Gardaí seem to have control over the situation. This is the biggest deployment of Gardaí riot gear in the history of the country, which is an achievement given the entire history of the country. But
that is true. But if you just trace it back, they're probably only including the South. And by the time the Gardaí would have been an official thing, you're already losing a lot of the earlier problems.
Yeah. So since the 1920s, this is the most riot police we've ever deployed. But the streets then, by about 10, 11 o'clock, it's gotten quiet. So that's all what happened on that day. And meanwhile, there's all this information and misinformation flying around the place, which we'll talk about.
And one of the things, but not to minimize it, that's all that's happened at that day. It was mad.
Oh yeah, that was insane.
Yeah, it was.
If one of those events would have been like the talking point of, like the stabbing was insane.
Yeah.
That doesn't really happen here.
The rioting, madness.
Yeah.
Any one of those smaller riots, if the other 3 or 4 hadn't happened, would have been insane.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was coordinated all happened at once.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, you talked about was because we saw pictures of the tanks and stuff being deployed on the streets, and that was fake. It was from some training exercise a while ago. I was wondering with stuff like that, though, is like at some point, is it genuinely just someone being misunderstanding something, or at some point down the chain does someone be like, let's just throw this into the mix and see
what happens?
Or does it pop up in a WhatsApp group and someone's like, fuck?
I'd say it's probably a combination of all of it.
Yeah, it seems like such a weird thing to be like sitting at home and be like, you know what, I'm going to start tweeting a picture of a tank that I know was wrong.
Someone said it maybe as a joke, then one person said, I'll start the pot of it, and this is multiple people from different...
Yeah. Well, so that was one of the many, right.
But we saw it, and the reason I thought was like, this can't be true. Was that when we were already in the city leaving the comedy club?
Yeah, because we were in the city that night.
But when you're seeing those photos, you're like, all right, well, this is fake because I'm in the city.
No, I know.
It wasn't that bad. But
it was pretty, but we were on Dame Street.
So it was in the middle of, it was the top of Grafton and the top of O'Connell. So we were kind of like in the middle of where it's actually safest.
Sure. It was very localized, but so over the course of that night then and the next day, it came out that so it was all anti-immigration. That's what the riots were about. That came out that one of the guys who stopped the attacks was a Brazilian Deliveroo driver called Chao Benicio. I don't know. I can't remember if that came out. That was at that night, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
It was pretty quick. I think that because he gave an interview to the Gardaí and then to the papers, so his name went around pretty quick. And we'll talk about this in a minute because a lot of people have been very annoyed about the specific. So basically, it came out then as it went on. The 3 people seemed to be the main 3 that intervened. He was one of them. He used his helmet to knock the guy out, the attacker. His story seems to go everywhere because he was interviewed first, and also because it was like thrown to try and I guess quell like the anti-immigration thing. So this guy's also an immigrant, and he saved some children's lives. And also in the scene, there's a guy called Warren Donoghue, who's from Wicklow. I found out about him because his wife made a big Facebook post complaining about how he wasn't going places, which we'll talk about in a second. Well, yeah, whatever. But
I haven't seen the post yet. I've only heard it through you, and I assume what she meant was in a different tone than the way you told me.
I don't know. I'm not going to try and read her mind, but whatever. The third person was Alan Lorenguil, who is a 17-year-old trainee chef from France. So,
I'd missed him completely. He hasn't popped up for me.
Yeah, so those are the big three. You can look at yeah, so Macron publicly gave him a kudos there the other day. Pretty quickly afterwards.
Nice.
Yeah, so he didn't rate. So of those three guys, between the three of them, and there's a lot of debate now. It's very stupid. It's become very localized. Initially, it was like all anti-immigration, and now all of the sort of right-wing Twitter things are like very particular about who did what first, and they're very quick to be like, the white man,
Oh no.
the Wicklow man, he was actually the main hero. And there's obviously going to be weird feelings about like, yeah, so there was GoFundMe set up for a couple of different people, which I don't know.
You can do that on behalf of anyone.
You can, yeah. So the GoFundMe was set up for Chow first, and I think it's over 300 or 350,000 at this point to buy him a pint, which
it was a GoFundMe specific, because I thought it was a Buy Me a Coffee River, because people started, do you see people getting annoyed? It's only just, people have takes and they just want to go online and scream about stuff, but I saw multiple people, but mainly that one that went around big style of the woman complaining that he's a hard-working man. He doesn't need a pint. He needs money to be able to afford to live in this city. He's not being given a voucher for 350,000 pints. He's been given. It's just a token of. That's what they're calling it. It's not.
If GoFundMe come in, they're like, if you don't drink all that you can't actually legally spend any of the money unless it's on pints.
To see that someone had got that confused and to get outraged.
I don't think they're confused. I think they're just
an idiot. But
there's an awful lot of all of
but that
this
is
story.
Confusion. That they're like they legitimately thought that what was happening was, instead of Ireland getting together and giving this man money he could use to better his life, they were giving him pints to better his life.
Well, that was about 300 grand worth of shame and guilt from all of us. We were like, this is bad. Let's throw a lot of money at this Brazilian guy to show that we're not racist. And then afterwards it comes. So I think I said this to you as a joke on the day. Warren Dunne was like that's pure George Costanza. Imagine like being, because like there's footage of him from the scene. He was there. It was daughter's birthday, and she has autism. So he jumps in. There's pictures of like his shirt gets slashed up trying to get the knife off the guy, and you can see in the video then he runs off afterwards to go find his daughter.
Because she's run to the rotunda.
She ran around the corner to the rotunda hospital.
Get
to warn
and
everyone.
nurses.
That there was an attack going, which is great. That's insane. But that is a very George Costanza moment to be like that hero, and then it's like the other guy has been invited to hang out with the Taoiseach and stuff. You're like, well, it's not about the money, but at some point. Anyway, you got to find humor in what is one of the darkest days that's happened in recent Dublin times. But so you got the anti-immigration riots. As soon as a bit more information comes out about it, I mean, it's also Parnell Street. It would be insane if everyone there, if everyone involved in any incident was like ethnically white. Like that's a very multicultural part of the city. It turns out, like I was reading an interview there before this about a Filipino worker who was issuing first aid, who I hadn't heard about until today. There's unsubstantiated claims. I can't find anywhere trustworthy that says it for sure, but that so the guy attacked 3 kids and the creche worker. 2 of the kids got released from hospital then in the next day or 2. One of them is still in critical condition as of today, the 29th of November, but there's a lot of claims that she is also from a migrant background. Who knows? But it's kind of gone this weird thing where everyone's trying to like find out everyone's ethnicity to prove some sort of point.
Yeah, I don't get. Was even because I saw.
But I suppose the overarching point is that like this is, it started off as an anti-immigrant thing, and you can see in the videos all these people are like save our children, and all this sort of stuff, and it turns out that a lot of the people involved in this are from other countries.
Yeah,
including possibly the victim and the people who stopped the assailant. And
also it's probably important to say as well that the assailant. It's been said that he's living here for the best part of 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's not, when people have been talking about like recent immigration, it's not that.
So that's the next step. Let's go overall. So all the people involved in the attack on the victim side.
But also just what you were saying of like how things have been handled differently. That it's also like friend of the pod, Donald Fallon, put up that photo of the Warren's Adidas hoodie that had been slashed by the but people didn't really necessarily ride in hard behind. See, it's not everyone wearing hoodies who are good people. There wasn't a 350 grand sent to Warren, so it was just on either side of all these takes people are making that it does seem to be heavily leaning one way.
Yeah, it's a very traumatic event, and It's insane. Like, it's a bizarre thing that hasn't happened before. Where there's a riot, like the riot that people compare it to is the 2006 Dublin riot, where the literal Orange Order marched down the main street of the city, and that riot pales in comparison to this. Like, that's the closest thing. Is that almost 20 years ago, like like Cromwell marched down the streets and people got mad, and this is yeah. So it's insane. So everyone's rushing to try and make sense of it, and people are getting probably focusing in on, I don't know, bizarre details of the who did what first. Some spotlight is being shed on other people as opposed to, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people get annoyed at Joe for being all these things. People keep interviewing him. People keep inviting him to places. People are sending money to GoFundMe place, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, fuck this guy. Who's he think he is?" He's like, "He didn't do it." Well, he did. He did something very brave. He tried to save a child, and now everyone's...
they're like, why are you trying to profit off your 15 minutes of fame? Because he has 15 minutes of fame. He's
also not trying to profit off it. He keeps saying in the thing.
But it is like people would keep reaching out for interviews with paid... Like, they are paid interviews.
Well, as in he keeps saying in his interviews that there was other people involved and keeps
talking yeah. Oh, no, I'm not saying he's dead right to do it. It's just that you can see how in the last week we've seen so many... Like, I don't want to keep using the word idiots because it's not fair.
Yeah.
But, like, people have takes. People want to have takes. People hear one piece of information that has absolutely no link, not even a tangential link to another piece of information.
Yeah.
And then they just, in their brain, they just, like, it's... I don't understand what's going on.
Well, that's a lot of people are just trying to make sense of it, and you're trying to like find reasons for it.
But trying to make sense of it while not understanding it is not a way to get into an argument with people screaming at people.
Trying to make sense of it, but not sitting at home and reading stuff and trying to figure it out yourself, but instead getting on your public platform. I mean, forget about the fact that you're listening to us talk about this in a podcast. That's irrelevant. I don't even know why you bring this up. But yeah, so the next bit then is, what you were talking about. So that's all the people who are involved, or as much, a lot of them are children, so there's not much information released about them. The school worker is still in a serious condition, and the 5-year-old kid is still in a worse condition in the hospital. There's not much information released about them yet, which is understandable. Of the people who stopped the attack, it seems to be a fairly ethnically diverse group. And then, so the last bit of the attack, first of all, is the Algerian guy. So there's pictures circulating early on of him. He's a white Algerian man, 49 years old. He has been he's been in Ireland for 20 years and has been a citizen here for some amount of time as well. He came over in 2003 from Algeria, seeking asylum. So there's still there's not that much information coming out about him either, because he's unconscious because he got the shit kicked out of him. Rightly so.
Now I have seen that there's been links with him in the past to crime with knives.
Yeah, so I've got all that here, and we'll talk about basically, so he came over as a refugee seeking asylum, got a deportation order. They appealed the deportation order in the High Court, and at some point after that applied for and received an Irish passport and became an Irish citizen. So that I think is around 2008, 2009, 10. The other information that's come out about him is that he had a brain tumour removed at some point. I've heard 2 years ago, sometime in the recent past. And he has been interacting with mental health services frequently in recent times. He seems to be, from what information has come out, he seems to be half homeless. He's got a lot of addresses where he's only staying for a certain amount of times, shorter periods of times. And as you said, he's he's been arrested twice in the last, just over the last year. He was arrested in September 2022 for knife possession. He was out on bail for that when he was arrested in May of this year, 2023, for damaging a car with a knife.
Yeah, see that.
So he goes to court for both of those in June of this year. It seems like he represented himself because there's no record of a public defendant, and it's unlikely he paid for it himself. And there was a judgment of no order at the end of the case, which I don't know anything about this. I'm just reading this, that apparently it's quite rare, and it implies that there's severe mental health issues on behalf of the accused. So the guard, he took his phone, his laptop. So he's still unconscious. He's in an induced coma. So they don't really know. They haven't been able to question him or anything like that, but they took his laptop and his phone, and it seems like he has no link with the school. He has no link to, organized terrorism. There's a lot of stuff about it's ISIS and Islamic attack and all that sort of stuff. Nothing to do with that. It seems, from his phone and stuff anyway.
Usually by now it would have been claimed if it had been. Yeah. Or maybe also there's obviously a lot of cases of people not being in contact with those groups and claiming it on their behalves and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that's kind of all that's known about him at the minute as well.
Yeah.
And
Which is also a reason why people are very annoyed and angry, because
but all of this
it
is only
switches
come out-
into like the conversation about mental health in the
Yeah,
country and
exactly,
policing in the country and things like that. And that's annoying. But like, say I saw earlier on today, or was it yesterday, that Mary Lou and Leo going at it, and you're just like, because they both kept basically yelling, "You're not listening to what the public is saying. No, you're not listening to what people are saying." It's like, neither of you are listening to what anyone's saying.
Yeah.
You're both gonna, like when Varadkar was like, "You're just trying to get political points at a terrible time," and you are as well. We both know what you're both doing. That it's like, if anything, what this has showed me is that I don't have faith in any party in the country.
But it's just,
or leaders.
Funny isn't the right word, it's odd or whatever. Like a week ago, the immediate reaction is anti-immigration. People go out and start rioting, looting, fighting the cops because there's too many immigrants coming over here, and that's the problem. And now a week later, it seems much more likely, like this guy has been here for a long time. He hasn't come over recently in any of the refugee or any of the crises in the last year or two. He has been in and out dealing with mental health services and has been picked up at least twice in the last year. So at some point, and this is where all the takes and people are getting annoyed, and it's like, oh, you can't fucking excuse people. I'm not making an excuse for him. He's a very bad man. He's a very troubled individual. But there's like 2 or 3 opportunities where the state should have stopped them. Yeah. Where he was seen as presenting a danger, and nothing happened. And now this attack happened. It has nothing to do with immigration policy and a lot to do with the judicial policy and mental health services. Yeah,
but obviously you can't read too much into, like, they're all private matters and such, but like in mental health services, if he had at any point in any of his sessions referenced being a danger to himself or to anybody else, that would have had to be noted and the police told, as well as he's had 2 convictions of knife crime.
Yeah. So, but he wasn't convicted. He was just up in court for.
But surely you would assume like the links of he has any kind of mental health issue. Yeah, he's already out on bail for having a knife, and he has another knife. You're like, all right, well, he's clearly like that's a giant.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of it's a scary thing. Like, people are scared when stuff like this happens, and they're worried that it'll happen again, or how do you stop it? It seems random and stuff. But there's a lot of stuff that, like, it's not.
Well, it's coming off the back of it's nearly, what was it, a week to the day, or it was in the same week
last Thursday.
Yeah, so it's the conviction for Aisling Murphy's death.
Oh yes.
So we're right off the back of that. It's been in like all over social media for that week, and then this happens.
Yeah. So it stoked up a lot of anger in people and brought them out into the streets. Well, that's pretty much all of the stuff from last Thursday leading up to the riots. But then the riots themselves, I've been following all the sort of far right anti-immigrant protests for the last year.
Years,
I kept meaning to like write an episode about it or do something for the show about it, and it's too bleak.
It is way too bleak.
Yeah,
and even you can't find whenever it was those photos going around of people saying, see, we were marching about they were coming to take our kids and you didn't listen to us. It's like, I'm pretty sure those marches you were saying that they were trying to steal adrenochrome and that they were burying like
a lot of just loot.
None of that made any sense.
No.
That what you were talking about. It wasn't there's immigrants coming over to like stab our children or even steal our children. It was that there was politicians in the country who were living to be like 100 years of age.
Yeah, and all this sort of like bullshit from America that's just coming over. Yeah. And it's all like a lot of like that.
Somehow copy and pasted but misspelt.
Yeah. And they're talking about like the fucking Irish Constitution and I don't know. But there's been riots.
Remember our heroes.
Yeah.
What would they think of this?
There's been a lot of stuff in the last year, at least, leading up to it. A lot of, I guess the common thing is people are angry.
People are angry. Even there, we were in the pub not long after, and I heard 2 friends just like next to us. One of them very angry, pointing, smashing the table with his finger, screaming about housing. And other bit like about immigration and everything else. And it seems like people are annoyed about a lot of things.
Yeah.
It switches on a daily basis.
It
switches on an hourly basis within it because all these things are linked and have been for years.
Sure.
So there's people are annoyed and scared and they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But they're also angry.
Well, it's the...
And you can't just blame the British for this. It's not the British's fault.
But we were talking about it last week that, when you're researching history stories and stuff from the past, and you just see knock-on effects from stuff like 2 decades ago, and people are like, oh, of course this attack was because of 20 years ago when the king decreed something or another. And it's been a rough old decade for Ireland. We had the crash, we had the first taste of money, and then there's a crash, and there's a massive housing problem, and we didn't really sort that, and then COVID came along, and
especially people of our generation,
kind of
people
hobbling along.
The younger people, because people who would have been maybe in their 40s or so would have seen the Celtic Tiger, or at least a part of that in their teenage years and such. But people of our age would have basically went to college
but we got the taste growing up as teenagers.
Oh yeah, you get a little bit of that, but like the idea of being by 15, 16, you're basically told it's going to be terrible here for the next kind of forever, and then in the space of that, all of these huge global events and once in a lifetime happenings have happened in the space, multiple once in a lifetime happenings in the space of one decade.
It feels like there's a lot happening. Yeah, and this is one of the many ironies that lots of people have pointed out already. Our solution to a lot of those things is emigrate. We go everywhere. A lot of people riot in the street about immigration. Not a lot of mention about how they probably spend time in England, Australia, Canada, America, or wherever, or that they have relatives there. Doesn't matter.
But again,
but a lot of it is just that everything's in the red. Everything's pushed up to the hilt. There's no accommodation. There's no health services take a long time. There's no mental health services really to speak of. Everything feels like it's under pressure, and there's already like a lot of the common themes between the people who were rioting last week being annoyed at immigrants, and then everyone that we see on social media being annoyed at the people from those areas. The general theme is that, scrounging, not working, living in a free house on state benefits. And the thing that people seem to be most annoyed about is they did that anyone would get anything for free because everything's so fucking difficult.
That was the same when Ukrainian people came in.
Yeah,
it's been happening for a long time because people just don't have 2 cents to rub together.
Yeah,
so people are angry about things. They don't know what to be angry about, or they can't have. I don't want to say they can't have serious conversations about it, but it is easier to just be like, "Fuck that! I'm not happy with that." But say if you're working 40 hours a week, and at the end of that you're living in Dublin and you're taking home 28 grand.
But even
you've got nothing.
Yeah, you've got nothing, and then
you have all of your energy and time is gone as well. Yeah. So you've done it all for no reason.
For no reason, yeah. And then this...
Well, actually not for no reason. So you can live in a city where you feel like less than a human because you can't afford to go do anything. And just every street you ever walk by is another advert of things you can't afford.
Yeah. And then there's the boogeyman of someone sitting on social welfare who's driving around in a Mercedes and has a great life and does nothing. And for communities, we live in a fairly working class community, and you kind of see that doesn't really seem to be the case around here.
No.
But for these communities, the boogeyman is, a Ukrainian refugee or immigrant who's come over here, has driving around 2 Mercedes and has a house for nothing. And it's this...
But even just that idea of the people who are on benefits who are also driving cars like that and have these second houses and stuff, is we've seen that in Love Hate, and you'll see that in with... Maybe I was going to say the 1% of the welfare.
Yeah.
The upper echelons of the welfare, they're getting away with it.
Yeah.
But you see a lot of people who are also on benefits and welfare and stuff and can't live a normal life.
Yeah, exactly. It's not an awful lot of money, especially in this city. But anyway, after the stabbing, the riots happened. So we talked about how there's massive riots, and it kind of shocked everyone. And there's a lot of people trying to figure out how it happened, how do we stop happening, who do we blame? And one of the few good ones I've seen that, I guess, social media, there's no, if you print something in a newspaper, well, first of all, it takes time to print something in a newspaper, but there are rules and regulations and punishments for if you get stuff wrong. Whereas a lot of this information spread through WhatsApp and Twitter with nothing done to stop it. In fact, Elon Musk started tweeting about how Riker hated the Irish. Did you see that? Yeah.
No.
Yeah, he started tweeting about how Riker doesn't understand the Irish, now he hates the Irish. Because I think he sees people like McGregor. He understands Ireland as being oh, McGregor, he's popular, he's big on X.
He doesn't understand the Irish. He tried to fucking let off how many thousands of people without knowing the laws of our country.
He doesn't understand anywhere. He just sees
he spent 40-something billion on a company without understanding the laws of the country where the headquarters are situated.
He's not a very... but he's a meme man. He's an edgelord. If he sees someone if he sees someone with a big following that he knows from a country, it's they represent that country. But anyway, so now they're letting all this disinformation spread. There's all these the Gardaí are cracking down and stuff and trying to arrest people, that some would say they probably should have arrested during any of the other demonstrations in the last year, where like these people were all over social media just being thick cunts, rallying up fear against migrants. But anyway, so these leaders might be arrested now, which would help. But all that information being sent around, all the lies, information about the kids dying and stuff during the day, like the people that's reaching are... There's one case that we were looking at of the guy who broke into McDonald's on O'Connell Street. And we'll play the audio of the video, I think, in this. He breaks in, he's recording himself doing it, and he's just pretending that he works at McDonald's. And in his pretense...
with a surprisingly good American accent.
Pretty good. And then he goes to pour some ice cream out of the machine. I get so excited that the machine is on. That the level of joy is I haven't experienced ever, I don't think.
No, that's like a dog whistle. Like he was so happy you couldn't even hear it.
Yeah, it was insane. And the next video he put up was him eating the ice cream straight from the machine. And like that man is an idiot.
Face exposed.
Oh yeah, face exposed. And there's so much of that. All the WhatsApp groups that were going around, like
from his own personal
account, names all over everything.
But that shocks us. When it was a little Aldi was burnt out the other year, everyone had their face up.
Yeah,
because they know the guards aren't going to come after them. There's no space to put them anywhere.
And that's so that's one of the other services that's up to the hilt, is that like the prisons are full, so there's really no.
But even like that idea, was like Veronica saying yesterday that McEntee is on about bringing in an extra 600 spaces. And like, does that mean we're kicking 600 people out to make space?
Yeah.
Or you're going to build an extra 600? And if that was always the case, why didn't we do that ages ago?
Yeah. And we're a very rich country, and you keep seeing headlines about how we have all this excess money and stuff. But I think that's the main... So the population of the country has increased by 1 million in the last 15 or so years, but the services haven't increased to match.
Yeah, and it's 18 years since they stopped building the extra prison that they wanted to.
Yeah.
So that's... 18 years, was a long time before that, they said, hey, Mountjoy's full, we need a lot more. So they put a load of money into building this thing. And then so it's 18 years since they stopped.
Yeah.
And then we've only seen multiple jumps in population increase. It's like it's...
And we're constantly seeing...
But the fact that no one's talking about that's a point that people should be talking about. It's not about whether someone was wearing a tracksuit. It's not about...
And it's the same... Again, it's the same rhetoric that like you give out to... Yeah, like everyone wearing a tracksuit should be kept away from the city centre, and they're feral and they're animals. And that's the same sort of thing that...
What would the city centre be like if we didn't have people from Dublin in it?
Yeah.
If we didn't have any immigrants? Yeah, it's like, I don't know what
would be left.
People from the country don't want to live in Dublin. They hate...
Because of the tracksuits and the immigrants.
They hated it before that.
I know, but it's everyone just pointing out to another group. And obviously, right, listen, all those people who were like involved in the riots, like the anger and the level of hatred when you're watching those videos, they're like scary individuals who should and hopefully will be locked up in, whenever they find space in the prison somewhere. But I guess the point is, if you got rid of all those people, if you locked up all 500 rioters, but didn't do anything to start building more social houses and increase the size and capacity of prisons so that the justice system can work, and put more money into the Garda forces, and also increase the healthcare so people aren't going fucking nuts. You don't start fixing all those things, like it's just going to happen again, or it has the potential to happen again.
Well, yeah, but it's even the idea of like, if you caught those 500 people...
Because that ice cream man is so dumb. You can't get through to him with logic. You can't start talking about like... you can't.
His brain is frozen.
His brain's frozen. He's got brains freeze. You can't start telling him about like it was a fucking French guy or a Brazilian guy who stepped into that. Well, let me tell you about a man in a tracksuit. That this is the last point, I think. But I was getting the bus into do a tour yesterday that I knew was going to be cancelled, but I still had to go in anyway because we won't get into that. But anyway, so I got the bus in, and there's a guy on the bus, and he was talking very loudly about his business, and I was like, this is too good. He's a perfect encapsulation of everything that's happened in the last week, and I love him. And then I got out to do the tour, cancel it, blah, 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 hop back on the bus. Same guy was on the bus going back in. Yeah, pretty sure I sat down beside him for the second ride just to eavesdrop more. I'm pretty sure he got in to buy drugs, and his mother had gone with him because she didn't trust the type of drugs he was going to buy. But that's just my...
like he had said...
He said he was buying hash, but she was worried he was something stronger, so his mother went with him to buy drugs.
He doesn't trust him with the shopping list.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But now I'm not 100% confirmed on that, but that's what I gathered from this young man. So, well, the first thing that got me when he was sitting on the bus, he was talking very loudly about football, and he referred to one of the players as, he's a mysterious player. And I thought that was very funny. At that point, I was like, I'll start paying attention to what this guy says.
I guarantee
mysterious
you,
player.
I guarantee you, he meant mercurial.
No, I think
No. I know what you're saying.
yeah.
He meant mercurial.
Why?
Just trust me.
Okay.
And any fans of the podcast who like football who think that I'm right, message in, and I'm 100% correct.
Okay. I just love the idea of like he's a mysterious player. So, so he started talking about how he'd spent time in England. He said he loved the British people, but he just hated the government. And he started loudly talking on the bus about like, I fucking hope that Maggie Thatcher, hope the fucking maggots are eating her alive, man. Hope the fucking maggots are eating her alive. Maggie Thatcher's been dead for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But hope the fucking maggots are eating her alive in her grave.
Did he call her Maggot Thatcher?
Maggot, that would have been better.
That would have been good.
But he started being like, and I know those fucking people on the bus probably hearing this and probably thinking it's bad. 800 years of slavery, man. I know my history to a fucking T. You have to know your history. History's my favourite fucking subject. That and maths. There's a yes. 800 years of slavery.
Wait, did he actually say that and maths?
Yeah. Oh, Jay, this is word for word. I started writing it down. I know my history. That was my favourite subject, that and maths. 800 years of slavery, no questions there. We were all historically slaves.
As I met a man at a bus stop the other month,
Yeah.
you have to know your history.
You have to know your history.
Bobby Sands.
Well, he does.
Michael
Yeah.
Collins.
Yes, and that's it. When people say you have to know your history, what they mean is you need to know 800 years of oppression and you need to know Maggie Thatcher.
Start calling it slavery because African Americans,
Of
we
course.
can start saying slavery.
Yeah. And then, so later on, about a few minutes later, because his second subject was maths, that's fair, he started talking about like, man, there's meant to be 6 million people in this country. And with the refugees, it's 3 times that. At least 3 times that.
Wait, what?
So I think he was saying that there's 12 million refugees, or possibly 18.
Maths is one of his favourite
His
subjects.
second favourite. So, but that...
When he said second, did he hold up 3 fingers?
I don't know. I was too busy. But that... And again, this is the ice cream man. I don't know what the kind of... Like, this man is so stupid that you gotta be like...
But even like...
But this guy is always going to exist. And you just gotta start looking at stuff like, taking care of misinformation being set on social media and reaching out to these, because these idiots aren't going to, like, if you lock up with someone for being this stupid, that's not going to solve the issue. There's still going to be people there.
Not to say...
But the idea that you can be like, because we're like dancing around the facts, we're like, oh, it's actually the Frenchman stepped in slightly before the guy from Wicklow. This guy thinks there's twice as many refugees and immigrants in the country than Irish people. And he proudly shouted that on a bus.
There was...
a week after a riot about immigration.
I know. Is a lad who was probably got a bit of notoriety during the riots, had been tweeting some things that got a lot of people very annoyed.
Yes.
He would have had things labelled at him a few years ago that would have spread around a lot on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Just the idea of saying that by the 2 tokens, a lot of people, not to say that what those things aren't, I'm not getting into it, just to say, I did see disinformation with that as well. The same, but the same token, that it's not like, that's what I was trying earlier, to stop saying like idiots or that people aren't smart enough for things, because I've seen people show me fake documents that are like, no, I know a guard who works down in the station. He showed me here's the picture of the thing, and they're like, but just the fact that people have been also doing that, the same people who are saying these idiots can't sift through misinformation. So just, it's on both sides.
Sure,
everyone's an idiot.
That's true.
Including and WhatsApp, me, I should be the leader of all of them.
WhatsApp did introduce that thing where it's like forwarded many times.
Yeah,
but all that, every time I see that, I'm like, oh, this is a good meme. this is good. But yeah, I don't know. Do they do flags for like disinformation? It's, something happens like this, and as you say, everyone needs to have a take and have some sort of point to make sense of it, which again is kind of exactly what we're doing.
But I'm trying to say, I don't have a take on it. I don't know enough about any of these situations to actually talk confidently on them. But then I also feel that I'm confident enough to say that a lot of people who are talking about them confidently
are wrong.
Are fucking idiots.
Yes. Well, the last thing on the bus guy was that he was also talking about how he'd gone to London he said he'd gone to London to grow up. And whoever he's talking to was like, what? He's like, get off the drugs. And he'd went to London. And
Dublin, shoot up, London, grow up.
Yeah, he was like, man, you got to grow up at some point. Move to London. And by his own admission, only lived in Irish neighbourhoods so that he could get respect. And there's no problem with the British people, but the British government. So But this is exactly the sort of fear. This is the boogeyman immigrant that people would be scared of in like that he'd be talking about. Is this like immigrant who comes to Dublin to get off heroin, doesn't integrate, only lives in his own communities so that he can get respect. I don't know what that means. But then in the next breath to start talking about how there's fucking far too many refugees here.
It's a fair point. I can't get past the I went to London to get off heroin.
Oh yeah. Well, now he didn't say heroin, but he did say drugs. But he was on his way in to buy hash, so I can only assume he meant heroin.
But if it had been a while
He's
ago,
a mysterious player.
I'm just saying it. I think London's had drugs for a while.
I know, yeah. But he was like, but he went there to grow up. You got to put away childish things at some point and move to London to be a negative Irish immigration stereotype, and then come back to Dublin and complain about everything, and think that there's twice as many immigrants here than native Irish folk, and then spend. As well, like at some point he was like, "Why?" Someone said, "Why is the traffic so bad?" And he's like, "I must be at that time when all the people go to work." I feel like I dreamt him.
I know, but
see him twice in one day.
I know it's so unbelievable.
Yeah,
I'm calling like
disinformation.
Jussie Smollett on you.
Yeah.
This is what's his name? Hassan Minhaj. You know, I feel like you're just going to be walking around telling this as an anecdote for years of something that didn't happen.
I'm going to need it in my Netflix special though. But that's it. That was it. The aim of this was just to put out all the facts that's happened in the last week or so, because a lot of other information going around. So that's what's been going on.
You said it'd be good as well, because then it would be good, like not closure quite, but like catharsis, or like at least you'll be able to talk about it. You make a joke or do whatever. This is shite. This has just been real depressing.
It was very depressing, and I really hope that the two people in hospital pulled through. And it's a grim old time. But yes, that's the episode for this week. Until we can do more stuff about lighthearted things from the past as opposed to all the grim things from the present.
The Dublin Whiskey Fire, baby.
Yes, yeah. Next week we'll be back with more Dublin Whiskey Fire stuff. But anyway, good luck.
Shafter.